Alright, now when it came to the TVS Apache RTR 310, well, if you ever wondered why you never saw a great deal of them out on the road, even though this motorcycle has a good amount of features and tech involved, well, that is for good reason because, well, as much as that may prove interesting or very enticing, when it came to the pricing of this motorcycle, many people just simply turned away from it because we're living in a world where 400cc single cylinders are pretty much ruling the roost as far as street motorcycles go. You have options from KTM, Bajaj, Triumph, really good machines, and although they don't offer you the same amount of features as this one does, well, they were priced a lot more aggressively and they offered a better value for money aspect. So now TVS have tried to turn the tide in their favor by updating the RTR 310 for 2025, and here is what this motorcycle now has to offer. So visually, what all is new with this updated for 2025 TVS Apache RTR 310? To begin with, get these new knuckle guards. Second bit is the new clutch cover, which you can now see through. It looks quite funky and cool. I'll just show you how it looks once the motorcycle is actually functioning. Yep. That's pretty nifty, but could be a little gimmicky in some people's eyes. TVS have also thrown in sequential turn indicators onto this motorcycle, which now look quite nice. And as far as the overall design is concerned, well, that is about it with this motorcycle because all of its external panels are the same as before, still leaving you with a lot to take in visually with this street bike. And although I'm still not a fan of the pillion seats design, I do feel that the new colorways that you have to choose from are a good refresh. I think that the bike looks exceptionally nice, especially with that Italian style split taillight unit and the new race-inspired Zatang blue paint scheme. In terms of features, TVS has now introduced launch control to the RTR 310, which has been borrowed from its fully fed RR 310 model. Then there's the new drag torque control feature, which is meant to improve the bike's overall ride quality. And I'll get to that feature in a bit because it is important here. And also, TVS have thrown in a lean angle readout in there, and that's something that is great fun to check out, especially when you're out on track. Now that last bit is part of the higher spec, more expensive bike menu. Still, even the base model of the TVS RTR 310 gets a good amount of features. The base spec model comes with a slipper clutch, adjustable levers, dual channel ABS, cruise control, traction control, drag torque control system which is new, and rear wheel lift protection. While you'll have to shell out extra for that lovely bi-directional quick shifter. The BTO Dynamic Kit includes the fully adjustable Kayaba suspension system, the TPMS, a brass coated chain, while with the BTO Dynamic Pro Kit, well, that comes with features like keyless ignition, launch control, cornering traction control, cornering ABS, wheelie control, and slope dependent control. For our test out here today, we were given the bike in the Arsenal Black colorway with the Dynamic Pro Kit on there, so as to get a chance to check out what these upgraded electronics actually do for the bike, especially out at the pacey coast circuit out here in Coimbatore. After riding this bike around for half a day out on the road and mostly out on the circuit, I'm still led to believe that, like before, the base variant with the bidirectional quickshifter on comes across as the best iteration of this motorcycle, that is if you're on a budget. And obviously, the more you fancy customizing your suspension or even if you want some added electronics on there, well, the BTO models continue to give you that option. Now, another very welcome change with this motorcycle, well, this updated one at least, comes in the form of engine refinement. Now, something that you'll really appreciate about this motorcycle is the fact that TVS have in fact changed the piston and the rings of this motorcycle. They have added a new forged piston and obviously some new rings in there as well. And your throttle transitions on and off are a lot more smoother than before. In essence, what this new drag torque control system does is regulate the spark and fuel injection into the motor by monitoring the speed of the bike, the amount of throttle input, and the wheel slip at the rear, so as to keep the bike's momentum going as smooth as possible. TVS has kept the power output of this liquid-cooled motor at 35.6 PS while retaining the minimum torque output to 27.3 Nm. Yes, kind of a bummer, I know, because TVS hasn't given it the bump in power like they did with the last update carried out with the fully fed RR310 model. And the manufacturer says that this was done intentionally to give the RTR310 different character traits, which in a way is understandable. Now, previously, the Street Naked used to feel very twitchy at low revs and overly anxious to accelerate from the get-go. And while you still have to employ the clutch quite a bit initially because this bike still doesn't know how to take off smoothly from under 2000 RPM, well, acceleration overall has definitely improved in terms of smoothness and linearity. It's a lot more rider friendly and it feels a lot more composed when you're in the mood for a relaxed ride, especially around the 4000 RPM mark. Now, this is still quite a noisy engine, but thankfully the level of vibrations has reduced. There is a buzz that creeps into the bar at around 5500 RPM, and it only gets intrusive the closer you are to the red line. But that's a lot more acceptable than before, you see, because previously it used to get really vibey at around 6000 RPM, which is really where the party starts with this reverse inclined motor. The bidirectional quick shifter is still a party piece on this bike, and like before, performance is brisk in the more responsive ride modes. And I'm happy that TVS haven't played around with the rider triangle or the chassis for that matter, because these aspects didn't really need any alteration to begin with. The riding posture that the RTR 310 will make you assume isn't overly committed, which is fine considering that it's a naked street bike, and I think it's still more relaxed a riding position than some of the lower capacity RTR models in the TVS lineup, to be honest. But the more you fancy going hot into a corner out on track, the more you'll want to stiffen up your suspension and swap out those stock foot pegs for a raced set. The agility and ease in changing direction with this 169 kg bike and its 1385 mm wheelbase remains a highlight. Aided well by a competent sintered brake setup that provides a good amount of feedback, and the dual compound Michelin Road 5 tires, well, they too fill you with a good sense of confidence when you're out on the road pushing for pace. Alright, now to wrap things up with this updated for 2025 RTR 310 model. Now what TVS have done with this bike is, well, to be honest, just make it a better proposition in terms of ownership, because, well, the main reason that people really turned away from this bike was the fact that it was overpriced. Although it did have a good amount of features, good amount of tech in there, really capable as well. Although it was more powerful than a 200cc motorcycle, it didn't really have the finesse or the punch of a 400cc single cylinder, which have become pretty much the norm nowadays. And more importantly, it has improved in terms of refinement. It is a lot more rider friendly, and of course the cherry on top has to be the pricing, which TVS have revised. The base model, well, the base model, which comes with a decent amount of features, will set you back by around 2,40,000 rupees. The top variant, which is technically the mid-spec variant, well, that will set you back by around 2,57,000 rupees. And the BTO models, well, they start you off at around 2,75,000 rupees. Now these are all introductory prices, susceptible to change over the course of time. Now, this effectively means that the RTR 310 is finally a lot more sensibly priced compared to something like, say, the Triumph Speed 400 or the Honda CB300R in terms of overall packaging. But how the market responds to this 310cc motorcycle that's punching above its weight in a country that's currently overwhelmed with a variety of 400cc single-cylinder gems is yet to be seen. And what is really nice is the fact that TVS haven't really mucked about with what this bike was meant to do, what people appreciated about the bike, and they have made alterations to, well, aspects that this bike seemed to be falling short on.